Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take this opportunity to appreciate you for taking your time to be part of us. If you're watching us from Kenya, please let me know which county you're following us from. And if you're outside Kenya, kindly let me know which country you're following us from. There is something happening in Africa, and it is really causing a lot of jitters among the heads of state in Africa. Within the last 4 years alone, Africa has witnessed at least 5 coups d'etat. Dissatisfied groups organize themselves and topple sitting governments. And this is really worrying because even in the recent past, we have witnessed a resurgence of the same. In Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré led a successful coup, and he has now entrenched himself as the new president of Burkina Faso, a young, sharp, brilliant man. And just a few days ago, General Abdurrahman Tiani, who was until recently the head of Presidential Guard, led a successful coup d'etat, and he toppled the former president now, Mohamed Bazoum, and they have announced as the military group that they have taken over. Now, this is really worrying some of the world's superpowers, and there seems to be a reason why we have a resurgence of this coup. Now, Kenya is not keeping quiet when everything is happening. In fact, William Ruto is a worried man. State House is not really settled because of this. And William Ruto took his time to warn one person they believe is perpetuating and condoning some of this coup d'etat in Africa. And they believe that this man hails from Russia, the president himself, Vladimir Putin. In a statement that was sent through Ruto's permanent through his principal secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they registered their displeasure against Mr. Putin for condoning and inviting some of these leaders in the recently concluded Russia-African summit. It's reported that Kenya wants Putin over supporting coups in Africa. And this is what Mr. Korir said, that the normalization and dignifying of military takeovers must trouble our great continent, a major rollback to the democratic gains so far made. And if you look at the picture there, Mr. Korir has given us a picture of African heads of states, and he's singling out Mr. Traoré, who led a coup d'etat and is now the youngest president of Burkina Faso. And this is really worrying. It behoves one to ask, what is really happening in Africa? And we want to delve so much into the reasons why this is happening and why William Ruto took his time to warn Vladimir Putin. Do you think it is William Ruto or someone is speaking through the president of Kenya? Before we do this, kindly, if you're watching us for the first time, subscribe to our channel. Click the notification bell so that whenever we do a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. You can like this video and share it if you can. Ladies and gentlemen, there must be a reason for everything under the sun. Why do you think we have a resurgence of coup d'etat in Africa? Someone is reading mischief and he feels that this is a battle, a supremacy battle between the world's superpowers. Ngunyi Mutahi is sending a warning to Africa. And this is what Ngunyi is saying. Dear Africans, military coups are contagious. What is happening in Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, Sudan, happened in the 1960s. Then it spread. It is the last frontier of decolonization. The Cold War is back. The theater of war is Africa and its resources. stupidity reloaded. Ngunyi Mutahi feels that this is stupid, and he believes that we are acting a script that has been written to us by the world superpowers. He believes that this is a war between the West and the East, the war being led by their head prefect, USA, Britain, and the NATO group, and then the East being led by the other captain, the Russia, China, and of course now Korea and India and all that. And if you ask me, it could have been better than this. Ngunyi Mutahi has put it, and I couldn't agree more. What is happening in Africa is a cold war between the world superpowers, and we are bearing the brand of this cold war. Let me tell you why these coup d'etats will happen even more often. And Ngunyi Mutahi says that it is contagious because there are dissatisfied members of states, there are dissatisfied oppositions in each government, in each country, and citizens are very tired of certain governments. Now, we begin by the West, who has decided to poke its nose into African political affairs. So what happens is that whenever there is an election, like in Africa, we have lined up about 10 general elections, presidential elections that are set to take place between this year and next year. And the superpowers have lined up their interest. America always wants to install their president because they want a president who will dance to their tune, a president who will be very easy to manipulate, who will give them the easiest way to exploit resources and perpetuate the interest of the LGBTQ, of the GMO, and all this will be taking loans from the World Bank and the IMF. Now, when they get and poke their nose into the electoral affairs, the first thing that they do is that they help their puppet to capture the institutions that govern the election, the electoral bodies. And then, if the system of election in that country requires that if you are dissatisfied, you go to the court, they capture the courts. Now, once they have installed their person, the citizens get tired and they're disgruntled and they're disappointed. So they keep on crying out. And when you see most of these puppets that have been installed by the USA, they have decided that they will be taking loans from the IMF and the World Bank. And the World Bank and IMF will always dictate that you increase taxes on fuel, taxes on electricity, taxes on everything, so that the cost of living is just too high that the citizens cannot bear. Now, what happens in such scenario is that people start looking for way out. What do? Then these are the situations where certain opposition leaders can gang up with part of the military, and we have a military coup. Because the military are also part of us. They are our brothers and sisters. When the cost of living is too high, when the government is perpetuating ill motives, they are also part and parcel of it. And sometimes it reaches a point when they say, no, we cannot accept it. Most of those puppets of the West will perpetuate killing of the people. When people go to the street to lament their displeasure, they are being killed, they are being maimed. And sometimes the military says, enough is enough, and they wake up. And this is the reason why we have this military coup. The question that people should ask, what is the root cause? Someone was putting it this way, that democracy, as they say that when you have a military coup, it goes against the tenets of democracy. But democracy is not just an election. Most of these people will tell us that we had an election. We have a president that was democratically elected. But democracy is not just about elections. One of political pundits is putting it this way, that democracy is about institutions, the judiciary, the justice system, the civil service, parliament, and civil liberties reflected in press freedom. and is saying that it is high time that we look at our democratic trajectory, whether it is what this guy was calling isoformic mimicry. Does it really work for us? And this is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, why before we condemn this coup d'etat, we need to look at the general root cause of this coup d'etat. If you have a government that is not democratically elected, yet you tell us that you have been democratically elected, and you tell us that once an election has ended, it has ended, then people start grappling with very many challenges and you don't want to look into them. You are playing to the gallery. You are playing to your masters who installed you in power. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why we have a coup d'etat. So they are blaming Mr. Putin for welcoming Mr. Traore in that summit. While if you look at the Cold War that is happening, once you have installed your puppet in power, then the East will always come and work with the disgruntled opposition. When the people are tired of you, and they will support the coup, because in some of these countries you will realize that the people welcome this coup d'etat because they're tired of the government. And even in certain places, it is the USA and the West who try to initiate this coup d'etat. Look at what happened in Libya. Look at what happened in Egypt, what happened in Sudan. Once they have entrenched themselves, in fact, if you are there and you are not dancing to their tune, you will automatically go. In the case of Mama Gaddafi, they will ensure that you are annihilated so that they can appoint their own man. In most of those countries where they have led coups that are led by the USA, we don't have peace in those places. And you realize that most of them have got resources. So once they have led those coups, they get in and start getting, if it is oil, uranium, all those minerals that they want. But if this coup is perpetuated by the other side of the world superpower, people like Russia, then they feel bad about it. Like in this sense, William Ruto is really scared that this thing is contagious. It might just happen even in his country, because we have a disgruntled opposition, a disgruntled citizens. This is not the first time. In 1982, I understand that there was an attempt against the late president Daniel Toroitich arap Moi when Kenyans were really disgruntled. And so, ladies and gentlemen, William Ruto is worried, but the other person who is worried is Joe Biden. And William Ruto is speaking on behalf of Joe Biden, who is warning Russia against tolerating this world's coup d'etat. But the root cause must be looked at so that we have a working democracy, not an amorphous democracy that is defined in the sense or in the acceptance of the West. Africa needs to rise up so that we handle our affairs. Otherwise, this coup d'etat will continue happening as long as we don't have an amorphous democracy, which is just an isoformic mimicry, as someone puts it.